there are four human coronaviruses that circulate quite widely around the world, but they normally cause fairly mild flu-like symptoms. But over the past couple of decades, we've seen novel coronaviruses spilling out from animal reservoirs. Back in 2002, we saw SARS, and then we also saw the MERS coronavirus, which is still actually happening in the Arabian Peninsula. And, of course, now on top of that, we've got a novel coronavirus coming out from supposedly this fish market in the city of Wuhan. We don't know which animal it is.
Well, this is the thing. Whether it's from chickens or fish, how on earth are these viruses spreading from animals to humans?
Well, unfortunately, what happens is, so the animal markets in particular are perfect breeding grounds for viruses, because what happens is, rather than trading in meat, they actually trade in live animals. And so if you have a live animal with an infection and then that's introduced into the market, they're kept cheek by jowl in very close proximity, and so the virus can spread very easily from animal to animal. And unfortunately, you then add humans into the mix, and if it's the right virus with the right combination of mutations or the ability to infect humans, that's what it does. It makes the jump. And unfortunately, what we're seeing at the moment is, we think, a reasonable amount of human-to-human transmission, because the cases have gone up from around 40 confirmed last week to now we're talking of more than 400. So it's quite a spike.
We literally have a movement which is headed, in effect, by Donald Trump, probably, but with people like you and I, Robert, common sense people who don't want to buy into any of this nonsense anymore. We're fed up with it.
Mate, we're sick. We're sick of having our kids terrified in schools with the misinformation that's being peddled.
Yeah.
I've had my 14-year-old ask me last year, are we all going to die?
Really?
Right? And oh, yeah. No, and we're close. So I explained. In the end, I just had to tell her, look, you still have to respect your teachers. They are people that, that's what it, I'm a bit old-fashioned in that way.
Yes.
But I said, but on this one, they've got it wrong. And then, of course, you have the question, then they've got everything else wrong. But we're sick of being called racist when we're clearly not. And we're sick of being told that we don't care about the planet when we clearly do.
Yes.
And with this, we can have the anger stage, but what Trump is doing, he's taking it to the next level now. He's saying, look, I've got a blueprint. And when you look at his economy, when you look at the ethnic minorities in America, the black and the Hispanics particularly, are doing the best under his economy. When you look at in 3.5 years, the average American family has now got a median income that's up by $4,000, $3,500 or $4,000. How long will Europeans look to what's going on in America and then look back at the lot they've got in Europe and say, actually, I want some of that dream?
Well, I was talking to Stuart Jackson yesterday when I was doing Plank of the Week with him, right? And he pointed out that I think it was something like 25 years ago, 40% of the people on the planet lived on $1 a day. Now it's down to something like 7%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
we've never been better off.
We've never been better off. And the idea that espousing and going down a socialist route is going to make us all happy because we're all going to be have people being very authoritarian over us and taxing us to the hilt on projects that just basically deliver wealth to rich globalist corporations. Yeah. It's insane, and we know it.
I'd be cautious of believing everything you read in the paper, even somewhere like the Financial Times. There's quite a lot of confusion over these numbers, not least because the project was originally priced in 2013 figures, then 2015 prices, and of course you just add inflation, any project will get more expensive without doing a thing on it. So I'm a bit cautious about some of the numbers flying around, but we'll get the actual numbers very shortly on this. Essentially, what I'm weighing up, along with the Prime Minister and Chancellor, and will, as you say, be making this decision in weeks rather than months, is whether or not we can get capacity in another way. So is it the case that you could upgrade the West Coast, the East Coast, you could do other things and get the overcrowding down and make sure that we've got sufficient capacity? Or do you have to build an entirely new railway? And that's really the fundamental.
We could spend a fraction of taxpayers' money from the 106 billion. We could spend a fraction of that and really improve rail links, particularly east and west in the north and the Midlands of this country. This is what people are crying out for. They're crying out for HS2.
So look, we have to wait till we come to the conclusion, because you may well be right. Having said that, it's not an either or, in as much as we're spending £48 billion completely separately to HS2, completely separate to Northern Powerhouse Rail or any of these other projects, just on, if you like, day-to-day improvements in this 5-year period. So there's massive amounts of money going into things like lengthening platforms and digital signalling and all of that kind of stuff in any case. We've then got some big projects, Northern Powerhouse Rail, which we're definitely doing. We're going to build that line from Manchester to Leeds, and many other of those northern cities, 6 or 8 northern cities to be joined up through Northern Powerhouse Rail. We've then got decisions, as you rightly say, on things like HS2 and how best to connect this country in a way that works. But these are big decisions for the country. I would say that this is the biggest infrastructure decision that the United Kingdom has ever taken outside of wartime. And so, quite rightly, we want to get that decision right, and people would expect us to.
They've all said, I think, the Pythons, that if they were to present themselves to BBC directors today, BBC bosses, that Python would never have been commissioned if it was today. Do you go along with that?
It's almost impossible to know, isn't it? Because the context is so different. It is certainly true that at that point, the commissioning process must have been a lot easier. Some of the stuff you see that was on the 70s, you think, that's just a bloke's gone into the studio and said, what about I dress up as a butterfly and then he's go for it. Like, sometimes you look at... and the commissioning process, if anything, is the opposite of that now. It's massively overblown. So it probably is true that at some point, someone in the sort of 21 people that you have to get through to get something on telly now, one of them would have said, Knights that say... No, I don't think so, mate. But then it was
just the notion they're all blokes. I think they'd struggle to probably get past the BBC with that. White privileged blokes. Yeah,
it's fair to say I include myself in the same bracket. We're less popular than we used to be. Yeah, a lot has changed. We have to hide in studios like this these days. We're a long downward slide after several thousand years of having it.
Fascinating developments yesterday. Let's talk about them as they happen. Jess Phillips withdrawing from the leadership race yesterday. A very short-lived campaign. She said she didn't think she did very well in the hustings at the weekend, and she didn't think she was the person to unite the party. Is she a great loss? Or is she the candidate that could have actually worried the Conservatives?
I mean, she might have done. I think her problem was that she didn't ultimately take up a position on any significant policy issue. She's a big personality. She's got a big part to play in politics going forward. But if you don't ultimately have very much to say on the substance of the political issues, then ultimately you're not going to, as it were, make an impact sufficient to keep you in play on the battle, basically. So I think to some extent, although there are very short periods of time within which to put your point of view in the hustings that we've got, nevertheless, you've got to have done the work to work out what your position really is.
And also, so it's one thing being a backbench MP and being asked to sort of comment or criticise or give your opinion. That's very different from actually going into as an interview as an alternative prime minister and actually, as you say, having the substance of the politics. Well, it's interesting. I mean, she in a YouGov poll of Labour members for the Times earlier this week suggested that she was only the first choice of 11% of Labour Party members, which had put her in third place originally of those candidates. But of those who chose her, 60% had Sir Keir Starmer, the Shadow Brexit Secretary, as their second choice. So that looks like Jess Phillips leaving the race will actually be very good for Sir Keir Starmer. Her support will go to him largely. But what about Lisa Nandy? I mean, there was a thought, she to a lot of extent was competing with Jess Phillips for that sort of I'm the honest candidate, I'm outside of the shadow cabinet sort of role. She getting that boost from the GMB union, that was a huge boost, wasn't it? Bearing in mind at this stage of the process, after getting MPs and MEP support, candidates need the nominations of 3 Labour affiliates, including at least 2 unions, which must comprise of at least 5% of affiliate members, or they need nominations of at least 33 constituency parties. But she's already had the NUM, she's now got the GMB. That is going to place her in very good stead in this election, isn't it?
Yes, she has been impressive because she has been talking about the big thing that happened in the general election, which is we lost so many seats in the Midlands and the North that we fell back hugely, and the recognition that we can only get back into power if we have some means of recovering large chunks of those seats and certainly not losing other ones. Lisa has been specifically addressing that issue in some considerable detail. She has had a position and has made an impact in relation to it. The Labour Party quite often doesn't go for the front runner. The Labour Party tends very frequently to be attracted by somebody who starts as an underdog, appears to be in a sense, more radical or more interesting than the conventional front runner. So I do not think that this contest is by any means decided. And I think Lisa, perhaps like Ed Miliband, perhaps like Jeremy Corbyn, could suddenly come from behind. Obviously, on the basis of the poll you referred to, the YouGov poll, and there's been, I think, one or two before that from YouGov, it looks like Keir is the one who's the one to beat. But do not underestimate what Lisa Nandy may achieve. She has done incredibly impressively. I mean, it's not her fault, but I think it is a very ugly look, by the way, that who gets onto the ballot looks like it's effectively being determined by the big unions.
But no, not effectively being determined. That was literally the point of these rules, to make sure it was about unions. I have to say, Lisa Nandy has put some feet wrong already, though. I mean, yesterday she tweeted out that the government has admitted to me that crucial workers' rights like equal pay, maternity leave and holiday pay could all be scrapped as early as next year. Nobody voted to lose these vital protections, and we must fight them every step of the way. This is as a result of us leaving the EU. This being, I'm trying to think of a word I can say on air this time of the morning, if children might be listening, but absolute and utter balderdash nonsense, bearing in mind that on all the issues, whether it's sick pay, holiday pay, maternity pay, minimum wage and the like, we actually have far, far better terms than what is it where there are EU minimums, where EU minimums are set.
She's got a point, though, isn't the
Has
point?
she?
Yes, the point surely is, if you're not going to commit yourself to at least maintain that lead in all those workers' rights and environmental rights, and presumably the implication is you might substantially reduce those rights. And it may well be that what the Conservative government has in mind is to reduce those rights, to make the United Kingdom, inverted commas, more attractive, as they would see it, to invest.
I think you could reduce those rights and you'd be booted out at the next election, quite rightly.
So why not make the commitment?
I think, isn't this down to what has or has not gone into the Brexit bill? And again, that's the whole point.
Why not make the commitment? Even if it's not in the Brexit bill, why not make the commitment? We will never reduce those rights.
Why would you need to make that commitment if it's just not?
For the very point I just made. Why not make the commitment? That's the key issue, I think.
I just don't even think it's on the agenda as one of the things that's being looked at.
Why not make the commitment?
Let's make a commitment to not beat up our children. Why do people need to make that commitment? People just don't do it.
To reduce workers' rights. What's wrong with that?
I just think it's utterly bizarre. Let's go back to Labour, though. Let's go back to Ian Lavery, the chair of the party. He's called for Keir Starmer, who appears to be the front runner. Again, I wonder actually whether these polls are showing really who is going to win, because I think Rebecca Long-Bailey's still got a lot of support within the Corbynistas, who have a lot of control in the party. But Ian Lavery has called for Keir Starmer to stand aside so that a woman can definitely win the Labour leadership. Now, I don't remember any of the other political parties ever having to ask male candidates to stand aside so that they could get a female leader. Why does the Labour Party need to do that? What's wrong with the women in the Labour Party? Are they just not up to it?
This couldn't be possibly the same Ian Lavery, could it, who considered himself the leader of the Labour Party?
No relation.
No relation. No. Well, I mean, I think it would be really good if the Labour Party did have a woman leader.
Why?
I do think, because I think we haven't had one.
So before, why does that make it a good thing to have one?
Because it would be good to indicate that women and men in the Labour Party have just as good an opportunity to become the leader.
Well, they do. What they do at the moment, they can stand and then people get a chance to vote.
But I think the fact that we've never had a permanent as opposed to temporary leader of the Labour Party who is a woman suggests, particularly to some women, that there's something in the Labour Party that prevents that happening.
Are you saying that the Labour Party members are sexist?
Well, I'm not saying that. But
well, what are you saying then? But we wouldn't need a man wouldn't need to stand aside to get a female leader if the best can. I just don't remember when Margaret Thatcher was elected. When far more recently Theresa May was elected as the leader. I mean, it was actually an all women shortlist by the end. The last two candidates standing were both women, including Andrea Leadsom. But there were no men standing aside just to make sure that someone who had different genitals from them won the leadership. Why would that be necessary?
It sends a very bad message that we've never had a woman leader, I think.
Does the message is the message that the Labour Party is institutionally sexist?
No, I mean I think if you in my area of the law, we had for the last 2 or 3 years the president of the UK Supreme Court was a woman, and that has a really empowering effect on people's sense that every place is open to women. And the fact that we've not had a female leader, sends it makes people wonder whether or not.
Yes. Well, I say, but either Labour establishment or the membership are sexist, or the women who stand for the Labour leadership just aren't really up to the job.
Well,
it's one or the other, isn't it? I can't think of any other explanation.
I mean, I think that it's absolutely clear that we have got women in the Labour Party who are well able to be the leader of the Labour Party. Why have they never become the leader of the Labour Party? Is it because there is inherent sexism? I don't know. But that's the worry.
Well, you say you don't know, but what's your suspicion then? Do you think that there is?
Well, maybe we've been too slow over the years promoting women so that there's enough of a pool from which to draw. But it's
got plenty of women in the shadow cabinet. You got 4 of the 5 candidates until yesterday were women. Three of the 4 remaining are women. Plenty of choice of women. 3 very different women to elect. And yet Keir Starmer is the favourite, the man.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not saying that. I mean, I don't agree with the deeply unhypocritical Ian Lavery that you should step aside. I think the party's got to decide who they think the best person to lead the country at this particular moment is, or lead the party is at this particular moment. But I do worry. I do think it would be good if there was a female leader of the Labour Party.
Okay, absolutely fascinating. I never even understand this statement. It would be a good thing if it was a woman. As a woman, I've just never understood why this has any meaning whatsoever, as if women do things so completely differently from men. But there we are.
Sir Michael, our condolences to you.
Well, thank you. It's a sad day, not unexpected, because this dementia had no end to it, no happy ending. We knew it was terminal. But I've been seeing him regularly over the years and over the months, and I always just chat to him, even though he can't respond. But the merest sort of wink of an eye or hand on my hand means a lot.
Yes, and it's such a
cruel. Won't have that anymore.
It's such a cruel condition as well, isn't it? I mean, a man who you knew at his peak, at his finest, and who is the man you remember?
I remember a really congenial man, a wonderful friend, full of ideas, full of energy, full of passion. He loved being Welsh. He was born in Wales, and he felt very Welsh. And sadly, he spent most of his life in Esher in Surrey, so that got him a bit frustrating for him. But he always had this energy and enthusiasm. Everything he talked about was something, which he conveyed not only his delight in your company, but in what could be said. It was never dull, never formal. There was always something new for Terry to talk about, and that was very stimulating and very encouraging.
What did he bring to you guys as a group of performers, as a group of friends? What did he bring to the Python party?
What Terry brought actually was a complete commitment to the shows. When others perhaps went off and thought, well, we'll do a little bit of something else outside, Terry was always very committed to getting the best out of the group. I can remember when we started working together, we used to work in Terry's house down in Camberwell. When there was talk of splitting up, Terry was the one who said, let's try and do a film together. He was always there like a kind of sheepdog, shepherding us all into the pen and saying we can work together. Sometimes he overdid it, I think, but it was for the best possible reasons.
And when did you last perform together?
The O2 Arena in 2014.
Glad you did that then?
Very glad. And I think looking back now, we did it just in time. Terry was beginning quite out of character to forget lines. He was always spot on with those things. And he had to have a bit of auto cue while we were at the O2. And I knew things weren't quite right there. He was still incredibly funny. And you can look at the O2 shows and see him playing the scene in drag with John, watching the penguin on television set explode, and it's terrific. But that was our last opportunity to work together.
Always great to talk to you. Very sad that the subject we have to talk about. And one of the things for all of us, when you are someone who is a public figure or an entertainer, it makes us all think, it makes you think, it makes me think, and listeners think of our own mortality and events in our lives here with all of this. How will you best remember him?
Oh, I'll remember Terry just of the times we spent when we finished working, and we go to the the pub and we'd have a pint. I don't have many friends now who I go to the pub and have pints with. It seems to have fallen out of fashion. But Terry loved doing that, and I loved going to, with him, and we went to all over the country doing filming and all that, and always found a pub in the evening. And I just greatly miss those wonderful rambling chats and grumbles about too much Watney's beer.
Well, a real way to be remembered, a simple way, and a perfect way to be remembered as well. Sir Michael, as I say, condolences to you, sad day, and thank you very much indeed for helping us to remember Terry Jones.
Thank you. Thank you for remembering him.